Ansarallah and the Axis of Resistance just landed one of the most significant strikes yet against Israel as they continue their campaign of resistance and retaliation to the ongoing Israeli genocide and US backed Israeli genocide in Gaza. What happened on the evening and morning of September 14th, 15th, depending on where you were in the world, was that a hypersonic missile, yes, that's right, I said that, a hypersonic missile made its way 2,000 kilometers across many different air defense systems, including those of the United States, surpassed them and struck Tel Aviv. Now, there haven't been any injuries reported. There are reports that it has targeted, that this hypersonic missile targeted a power and energy center of Tel Aviv. But of course, the Israeli media is very mum about this. But I'm just going to pull up now the story from Al Mayadeen based in Lebanon. And so here we have Mr the spokesperson of the Yemeni Armed Forces, General Yahya Saree, saying that the city of Tel Aviv in Israel was struck with a newly developed hypersonic missile, and it traveled over 2,000 kilometers to hit its target. So Brigadier General Yahya Saree announced on Sunday a new hypersonic missile launched from Yemen successfully struck its military target in Tel Aviv. Saree reported that the Yemeni Armed Forces executed the operation using the new missile, which traveled approximately 2,040 kilometers and hit its target in Tel Aviv in just 11 and a half minutes. Israeli air defense systems failed to intercept the missile, he affirmed. The missile launch induced widespread panic among Israeli settlers, with over 2 million people seeking shelter, an unprecedented event in Israel's history. Saree highlighted that this operation is part of the fifth phase of Yemen's strategic military efforts, showcasing military advancements in missile technology. He emphasized that the new technologies are designed to bypass U.S.-Israeli surface and maritime defense systems, which is exactly what happened. He further asserted Yemen will not be deterred by geographical obstacles or countermeasures of U.S.-UK forces, reiterating Yemen's commitment to its religious, moral, and humanitarian responsibilities to the Palestinian people. He warned that Israel should anticipate more sophisticated strikes and operations as Yemen approaches the first anniversary of the Al-Aqsa flood operation on October 7th, including responses to Israel's aggression on Hodeidah, the port which Israel bombed just a few months ago, and ongoing support for the Palestinians. Now, I don't want to get into Yemen's extended war just yet, because I want to show you that panic, and we can see that in Jerusalem Post, okay? So in the Jerusalem Post, they wrote an article, how did this happen? How did the missile evade Israel's missile defense systems? Because this is the big story here, that there was the ability to penetrate these missile defense systems, and it's caused pandemonium inside of Israel itself. So Jerusalem Post is showing what that pandemonium looks like in the Israeli media. It's still unclear whether the missile was detected in time and why the Arrow system did not intercept it as planned. So it says a Ansar Allah Houthi missile seemingly evaded Israel's advanced detection systems on Sunday morning. Despite advanced systems, it wasn't until the missile was over Israeli airspace that it was finally brought down, raising questions about potential failures in the security systems in place. The Houthis do not have their own ballistic missile industry. Their entire stock comes from Iran, and that's also part of this panic. Is, well, it shows that Iran actually is conducting retaliation to Israel's crimes. What is known in Yemen as Tufan is essentially an Iranian Ghadir missile, itself a development of the Shabab 3. For 25 years, the Arrow system has been developed and upgraded to be able to intercept it. This missile has a range of 2,000 kilometers, enough to cover the distance of Yemen to Israel. It's transported from its storage site to the truck launch site where it is assembled. The missile's target is predetermined and cannot alter its course or correct during flight. In contrast to the Shabab, the preparations for its launch, mainly filling the first stage with fuel, takes only about 30 minutes instead of several hours. The missile launched vertically and follows a ballistic trajectory, meaning it travels in an arc. It flies through the atmosphere with its engine still running, propelling it forward. During flight, the first stage separates, the second stage re-enters from the atmosphere after exhausting its fuel, continuing to accelerate due to gravity. So what's so interesting about this is they're telling us all of this, Jerusalem Post, because they're scared. I mean, this is just such an example of how the Israeli media is actually concerned that they cannot handle the capabilities of the axis of resistance, especially when they're acting in a coordinated manner like this incident demonstrates. Maximum 15 minutes from Yemen to Israel. From northern Yemen, the missile requires only 12 to 15 minutes to reach central Israel. Its pre-launch weight is 15 to 17 tons, but the warhead itself weighs about 650 kilograms, a significant explosive charge combined with its impact speed that can cause severe damage to civilian and also lightly protected military structures. There are detection stages for such a missile, which have appeared to malfunction this morning. Uh-oh. It looks like Israel's vaunted systems of air defense have failed, and Israeli media is admitting this. They have malfunctioned. When the missile is erected for launch, it is in an open area visible to Israeli and American reconnaissance satellites, which are supposed to monitor potential launch sites. When the missile is launched, the intense heat generated by its engine is detected by the American Missile Warning Satellite Network, and the information is supposed to be relayed to the IDF. Several radar systems are supposed to detect and track the missile when it is on a trajectory toward Israel. These include radar from American Israeli Navy in the Red Sea, the long-range X-band radar produced by Raytheon and located in the Negev, operated by American troops, and finally, the Aerosystem radar. And it's unclear whether the missile was detected in time and why it was not intercepted by the Aerosystem as planned. So do you hear this? This is panic. I mean, this is what panic looks like. It is demonstrating that the air defense systems that Israel and the United States have erected are completely worthless. The satellite systems, the warning detection by the United States, and of course, Israel's own air defenses are essentially worthless in this regard. This is a huge deal that I want to underscore, okay, because there is something I want to show you, which is the map. So you need to see this visually, okay? You need to see this visually. I can't show the missile strike itself because YouTube will literally take this video down. They've done it to me before. But here is Middle East Observer talking about the missile that was launched from Yemen to Tel Aviv over 2,000 kilometers, passing at least 2 American destroyers and a French frigate in the Red Sea. So here you see northern Yemen, the 2,000 kilometers all the way to Tel Aviv, bypassing the French Chevalier Paul, the USS Frank E. Peterson Jr., and the USS Michael Murphy. So there you have it, all bypass, and I'll zoom in on it, okay? All bypass. Look at all these ships, completely bypassed. Nothing happened. The only thing that happened was that the missile hit this hypersonic missile, hit its target. Now, we don't know the extent of the damage. We don't know the extent of the impact, but we do know psychologically that Israel is rattled. So now I'm going to pull up who I would consider a friend of the show, who I look forward to bringing on one day, war correspondent Elijah Manier. We follow each other on X, but he's a wonderful war correspondent and journalist who has traveled extensively across West Asia and writes about the details of the war. He breaks down here exactly what it means for this missile to be hypersonic and how big of a deal this is. I mean, this is a really transcendent development in the resistance to Israel by the axis of resistance. He says, Yemen's supersonic or hypersonic missile fired against Israel, Tel Aviv. So which one is it? So he calculates the speed. We need to calculate the speed to determine if a missile is supersonic or hypersonic. Speeds between Mach 1 and Mach 5 are supersonic, and speeds greater than Mach 5 are hypersonic. So if the distance is 2,000 kilometers and the time it took to reach Israel, Tel Aviv, is 15 minutes, we have about 900 seconds about. So then you divide the kilometers by the 900 seconds, and you have a speed of about 2.22 kilometers per second. The speed of sound, Mach 1, is about 343 so m/s seconds, or 0.343 kilometers per second. So Mach speed over speed of sound, 2.22 kilometers per second, divided by, there you have it, okay, the 0.343, you have 6.47 Mach, which is what speed this hypersonic missile was traveling at, which means that's what it is. It is hypersonic. So these calculations show you and demonstrate that, yes, Ansar Allah indeed has these capabilities. And Ansar Allah is not finished. As Yahya Suri says, they are not finished because they are coordinating with the rest of the axis of resistance. And here's what they had to say: that Yemen is prepared for extended war with Israel. Yemen is preparing extended war with Israel and is enhancing its strategic military capabilities with a long-term perspective in mind. And this is incredibly critical, this idea of a long-term perspective, because this is where we are now. We are in the phase of a long war. This is going to last for quite some time. And even the Western media, as I will show to close this segment, is talking about a long war and how Israel is in big trouble for needing to engage in one. And so Yemeni sources told Al Mayadeen Yemen will not limit itself to a single target, reaffirming to Israel that Jaffa, Tel Aviv, is not secure, urging it to take its threat seriously. The Israeli narrative regarding Yemeni military operations should not be trusted. The same sources told Al Mayadeen that Yemen is preparing for an extended war with Israel using multifaceted tactics and is enhancing its strategic military capabilities with this long-term perspective in mind. The sources emphasize that Tel Aviv cannot predict or the timing or location of its upcoming operations. The Yemeni army is thoroughly analyzing Israeli defense systems, similar to how it has previously assessed the defenses of U.S. vessels in the Red Sea, as per sources, which said that Yemen has reportedly developed new technology, some of which was used in targeting U.S. vessels that failed to intercept the missiles, right? It failed to intercept missiles struck at these vessels. Al Mayadeen sources also noted that Yemen previously executed a precise strike with the Jaffa drone, which successfully hit its target, revealing that it will now deploy new weapons against a range of strategic objectives. In a related context, sources further noted that Israel should no longer rely solely on air defense systems, as Yemen promises that future operations will involve precise, well-planned, strategic, and continuous operations, stressing that the Yemeni army is committed to delivering on its promises of maintaining a high level of operational purpose. Okay, so the hypersonic ballistic missile hit Tel Aviv. They are committed to a long war on Israel, and this comes after a drone, right? This was just several months ago when a Yemeni drone, right, hit Israel and caused a similar type of pandemonium. This was back in July, afterward, which Israel claimed it bombed Hodeidah port and caused all kinds of infrastructural damage. But this hasn't stopped Yemen and won't stop Yemen. This won't stop Yemen. It won't stop the axis of resistance, because this isn't just Yemen. Okay, we have to understand that Yemen is operating within the context of the larger axis of resistance. Iran has indeed aided Yemen and Ansar Allah in its efforts to develop this kind of technology. And we also have to understand that right as we speak, a military force, a paramilitary force, which also is an official political party, Hezbollah, is continuing its operations against Israel, which have caused massive damage, massive displacement of so-called northern Israel or northern occupied Palestine. People are not coming back. More people are set to leave after this missile strike hit Tel Aviv. And Hezbollah is continuing successful operations as we talk about this missile launch. So even just in the same week that this missile strike happened, Hezbollah's strike against the Gilat base, they're hitting military intelligence sites as we speak. It resulted in significant casualties, fatalities of 22, with 74 members injured. European security sources have reported that the recent strikes by Hezbollah targeting the headquarters of Unit 8200 in the Gilat Basin Air Base in Ain Shemer have been substantially successful. According to sources, the attack dubbed Operation Arbain, which is the retaliation to the murder of Fawz Shakur, have resulted in significant casualties within Israel's intelligence unit, reaching 22 members dead and 74 members injured. The operation was the main target of response into the assassination of commander of Hezbollah, Fawz Shakur, on August 25th. Or as confirmed by Hezbollah Secretary General Saeed Nasrallah on August 25th. So this was when the operation was declared. Dubbing the response Operation RBN, in a speech, Nasrallah reflected on the details of the operation and debunked Israeli claims that preceded and followed it. Nasrallah highlighted that the Gilat base is located 110 kilometers from the blue line between Lebanon and occupied Palestine and 1,500 meters from Tel Aviv's periphery, placing it just outside of Tel Aviv. He added that the operation's second target, Ein Shemer base, situated 75 kilometers from Lebanon and 40 kilometers from Tel Aviv. So they're getting closer and closer to Tel Aviv. That is the message here, that each time Israel conducts and crosses the red line of Hezbollah and really the axis of resistance as a whole, that there is going to be a response that gets closer and closer to the Israeli, the real Israeli capital, but to Tel Aviv, the epicenter of Israel. So he confirmed that a significant number of drones hit their targets, but the enemy is keeping all relevant details concealed, but the days and nights will reveal the truth of what happened there. So it's going to have two phases, this operation. It's focused on targeting sites first and barracks in northern occupied Palestine with hundreds of rockets to exhaust and deplete the Iron Dome, paving the way for phase two, which saw swarms of drones heading toward their intended targets. Regarding the guidelines set by the resistance for selecting said targets, he noted that they had to be military, not civilian, directly related to the assassination of the martyr leader and located deep inside occupied territory and close to Tel Aviv. Hezbollah continues to strike Israeli military sites, soldiers' gatherings, and military equipment on the northern front in support of the people of Gaza and the brave resistance. Spokesperson for the Israeli occupation forces reported that at least 30 rockets from Lebanon have targeted the Ad Jalil panhandle so far. Over 60 rockets were fired by Hezbollah toward the north over the past hour alone. This was the same week of this Yemeni missile strike. I wanted to show you that because it is definitive proof. And you can find this on Israeli media, Israeli apps. They're all talking about the same things. They're all talking about being in a now long war. And it is concluded, and there have been rumors that Israel is actually going to step up and conduct a ground operation against Hezbollah. But we have to understand that such an operation would be suicide for Israel at this moment. In fact, I want to show you just how suicidal the collective West, the United States in particular, view these moves by Israel to get embroiled in a long war. So here we have Foreign Affairs magazine. They wrote this just before this rocket attack, this missile attack happened. They talk about the coming long war to defeat Iran's axis of resistance. The IDF needs a new strategy in a unified country. And I want to go down now to the conclusion, right? Because the conclusion here, it talks about how it is going to address these strategic challenges that it faces, okay? Because it faces massive challenges internally and now on the axis of resistance front. It talks about this eighth front, and that's a reference to the 7 fronts of conflict Israel finds itself embroiled in. This potential broader war with Iran, right? Northern occupied Palestine with Hezbollah, in the West Bank, in Gaza with Yemen, Iraqi resistance, Kateb Hezbollah, and of course Syria and their Islamic resistance. So you have 7 fronts alone regionally coordinating to fight Israel in a war of attrition to really minimize the destruction to the region, but at the same time enact maximum costs onto the Israeli genocidal entity. But here's the 8th front, and here it's going to talk about what Israel needs to do. This is the Council on Foreign Relations, the CIA mouthpiece. It says, with Iran as the core of the axis of resistance and Hezbollah as the most serious military threat on Israel's borders, Israel's strategy must deal with the threats in order of their severity and urgency, meaning they cannot fight all of these forces by themselves. Israel should seek to end the war in Gaza and transition to fighting there to a long campaign, because, you know, the CIA and Council on Foreign Relations, they don't want to see the conflict end. They don't want to see the genocide necessarily end. They want to see Israel slow it down. At this point, this is the mostly a political step, since military operations have already become more limited, i.e., Israel has lost. Of course, Israel would need to continue fighting Hamas and seeking its enduring defeat, but that can happen after the release of the hostages. So, again, trying to save face for Israel. Gradually, with assistance from international organizations and Arab states, An alternative Palestinian regime must replace Hamas in Gaza, perhaps one area at a time. To prevent Hamas from taking over the West Bank, Israel should stabilize the territory by supporting accountable governance, supporting the economy, and promoting the rule of law, both through its own police and security forces with the Palestinian Authority. So, get a more compliant regime in Gaza for Israel. And Israel should advance enabling conditions for resolving the conflict long term while avoiding steps that would lead to the annexation of the West Bank in a one-state reality, aka Israel needs to stop its settlements and stop expanding to the West Bank, because that's only going to keep tensions going. Sooner or later, Israel will also have to address Hezbollah, the threat of Lebanon, preferably by diplomacy, but most probably by war. I mean, this is how the CIA thinks about things. Well, it's probably going to be war, but hey, let's give lip service to diplomacy. Ultimately, it would do this by means of a carefully planned preventative attack of a time of its choosing, rather than an uncontrolled escalation or deterioration of the current fighting. It is possible to take such a step. Israel should strive to end, until it is possible to take such a step, Israel should strive to end the fighting in Lebanon and distance Hezbollah from the border region through diplomacy, with no illusions that will solve the problem. If it becomes clear Hezbollah is preparing a major attack on Israel, it would be wise for Israel to consider a preemptive strike, but this time with much stronger signaling, including lethal force against a broad range of targets. So again, war with Hezbollah, yes, but not right now. Why? Because Israel can't do it right now. This is all about admitting defeat. It'll have to continue to disrupt efforts to arm proxy forces and pursue nuclear weapons, which is, of course, a myth. This will require stronger cooperation with Israel's partners, including foremost the U.S., of course, because cha-ching, the weapons must continue to flow into Israel to make weapons contractors enormous sums of profits. And to truly end the threat posed by Ansar Allah to international interests will require a collective approach that tackles problems at its source, addressing a supply chain that is funneling Iranian support and weapons technology to the Houthis and weakening their power in Yemen by reinforcing their competitors, aka more regime change in Yemen, which is, of course, a decades-long policy. So this is to win a long-term intensive multi-front war. Israel will have to increase defense budgets, cha-ching, for the weapons contractors. And of course, it will have to expand its pool of recruits in Israeli society, but it will have to resolve the country's political crisis. Meanwhile, if you read the rest of the article, you will notice that there is absolutely no mention of this political crisis until the end. This goes to show that the United States war machine, the neocons, they don't care about Israel's political crisis so long as Israel continues to do what is vital to their interests, which is honestly not what they're doing right now, because a long war, a war of attrition that has 7 fronts, will not be sustainable for Israel in the long term. So that is the conclusion that's being made here. This is being talked about in amongst prominent forces in Israeli and Western media, especially when it comes to the CIA, NATO, the United States military apparatus. This is what they're saying. They're saying that Israel cannot do what it's doing and expect to come out of this with any positive outcome. And what does that mean? What does that actually mean? That means Israel has lost. Israel has already lost this conflict. It's only a matter of time until the final defeat, and the bells and the alarms of defeat are sounding to the degree that they should be. Because at this point, Israel finds itself completely trapped. If this is a war of attrition, it cannot win in the long term. Of course, we have to acknowledge Israeli capabilities to cause massive amounts of damage. This is why it's a war of attrition and not simply the axis of resistance going all in, as many people who watch this program and other similar programs have asked and demanded and wished for, because people want to see an end to this. This channel does not advocate global, regional, World War III type conflict, even though I do understand the sentiment. This channel is dedicated to understanding why developments are occurring as they are and what the future portends within them and for them. And right now we see Israel defeated, yes, but a defeated animal, defeated state, a defeated genocidal entity does not just lie down and die. And so the axis of resistance is taking very calculated, coordinated, and organized measures to respond to the genocidal entity in a way that will both aid the Palestinian cause and keep the region from completely exploding. This missile strike by Yemen was a warning. It was a warning to the genocidal entity. It was a warning to the United States that they actually don't have the capabilities to stop the resistance. The only capabilities they do have is to lay wreckage and havoc and wreak havoc on the region. That is what they are doing right now. That is what is happening right now. And the Axis of Resistance is taking very careful steps to ensure that this long war of attrition ends up with the result of a Palestinian victory, and of course, a victory for sovereignty and self-determination for the entire region. And Yemen, Ansarallah, just sent a huge message, that signals both humiliation for Israel's so-called prowess. It signals defeat for the entire agenda of Israel and the United States. And what it does signal is that we can expect a long war to come, one that the United States and Israel have absolutely no answer for. Thank you for tuning in to my latest video. I appreciate all of your support. This channel, however, needs your help. I am seeking to make this channel more sustainable in the long term and upgrade necessary equipment to ensure that this work continues onward and makes progress to give you all of the geopolitical analysis that you all deserve. For that reason, I'm asking you to become a member of my Patreon community at patreon.com/DannyHyPhong. You can find that link in the video description or in the pinned comment below. For whatever amount you choose to give, just know you are supporting independent media that you can't find anywhere else. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next video.